Attention, Marines. It's time for Leatherneck Magazine's annual writing contest, and we want to know what you think makes a good leader. The history of the Corps is filled with legendary examples of outstanding leaders, and today's Marines maintain that tradition of excellence. Drawing from our storied history or from your own experience, describe the single most important thing you have learned about leading Marines, or describe an outstanding Marine Corps leader and what makes them successful. Submit your story by March 31st, and you could win up to $1,000 in prize money. Your story may also be featured in a future issue of Leatherneck. Visit www.mca-marines.org for more details or to submit your entry form. Good luck and Semper Fi, Mac. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners, thank you again so much for joining us, and thank you for your continued support. Really, honestly, couldn't do this without you also. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I am here with Nancy,
Hi, everyone.
and we've got a wonderful guest. But before I have him rock the microphone, I just want to do a quick intro because this is such an we were just talking before we hit record here that the story that we're going to unpack today is really just so engaging. We've had a lot of, really dynamic, wonderful guests, and today's guest is by no means an exception. This is going to be great. But just to do the intro part before I have you speak is that today's guest is a former Marine or veteran Marine.
Veteran Marine. What's the word?
But born in Karachi, grew up in Maryland, moved to Virginia, and then joined the Marine Corps in 1996, got out as a sergeant, has a bachelor's degree from George Washington, a master's degree from George Mason, pursuing a doctorate at Vanderbilt, was a teacher, then became the Virginia Secretary of Education, and now you're running for Congress in Virginia's 10th District. Scuttlebutt listeners, I really am so excited to be welcoming Atif Qarni to the show. I thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Vic. Nancy, thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited.
Yeah,
Happy to have you here.
Yeah, this is so cool. So we were talking a little bit for our return listeners. Know that I come from a refugee family, a family of refugees, and all of the dynamics that entailed. But you immigrated. Can you tell us just a little bit about your journey here in Pakistan, here in the U.S. as growing up, sort of getting acclimatized to Western American culture, and then joining the Marine Corps? Like, what was that like? I mean, that's such a rapid progression of monumental milestones within someone's life. I mean, even one of those things you could hang your hat on is like, I've lived a fulfilling life, and you did them all in the span of like 7 years.
Yeah. No, this is very exciting. So I came here at the age of 10. We moved to Baltimore from Karachi, Pakistan. So it was me, my two little brothers, my mom came in December of '88. So I actually remember going to the mall because it was kind of like Christmas holiday time.
Oh,
and,
nice,
and
yeah.
seeing who is this red person in red? What is this?
Yeah.
So, learning English for the first time, acclimating to this, a fascinating new culture, and the timing was awesome. So I have those memories as well. So my parents are still in Baltimore. So they made that their home. I've obviously moved around and been in Virginia for 20 plus years. So the school experience was, amazing. A lot of good memories.
And that's what, 5th grade?
I came in middle of 5th grade.
Okay.
Yep, Elmwood Elementary in Baltimore. Mr. Teeter was my first teacher.
Mhm.
Amazing teacher. Actually, when I became Secretary of Education, I wanted to reach out to him to say thank you for being so kind, because as an immigrant, I didn't know any English, so of course, there's a little bit of teasing that happens.
Sure.
People make fun of your accent and so forth. But Mr. Teeter was very kind and just, really handled the situation really well. So I really remember that. So I wanted to reach out to him. Unfortunately, he passed. So I spoke with his wife because the principal put us in touch. But what I was not surprised about is that they dedicated a wing after Mr. Teeter
Oh,
because he
wow, how
taught at
nice.
elementary. He was just phenomenal.
Yeah,
So teachers make a big
Oh,
difference.
they sure do.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
Don't make
pretty
a lot
cool.
of money, but make a
Then
hell of a
yeah,
difference.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, just like Marines.
Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
Ooh, well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Semper Fi.
Right.
So that's an interesting. So, what were some of those challenges? Like, having been the stinky food kid, growing up,
Yeah.
what was that like? Because I had, a grasp of the language, so my integration, I was the first American-born American in my family, and so uh, that transition was seamless. Even though I was still bringing a lot of the Eastern culture with me, I was still very American. There wasn't a acclimatization process.
Right.
You coming in the middle of fifth grade, I mean, did they have ESL for Urdu speakers, or
So
had that?
back then they
Yeah.
didn't
Okay.
because it wasn't as diverse, and talking about the late '80s
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Baltimore. So it wasn't the ESL ELL programs were not as robust.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so they did have. I think they hired specifically someone who came in once a week to kind of meet with me to work on my English skills. But it wasn't like a thing. It wasn't fully kind of
Yeah.
scaled at that level just yet. But I think that you know how that sink or swim approach where you just
Mm.
go right. I think I learned better at English because I was fully just
Yeah. Yeah.
assimilated. But one of the things is that, of course, the early years, you're still figuring out the culture. People are getting to know you. You're getting to know them. But what really helped me in middle school, but especially high school, is sports
Mm.
activities because I ran track and field, played football, and that's something that was a common ground where we all,
Yes.
you make a lot of friends, you become part of a group, a network. So that helped me a lot. As a matter of fact, the reason I joined the Marines, it was my two friends I ran track and field with, who were signing up, and they encouraged me. They said, "Hey, I told them that I was really fascinated with joining the military, and they're like, the Marines are the best, the best
Yeah.
of the
So you
best."
do. That's what you do. Yeah.
So they actually encouraged me
You
to
got
join.
Puli credit for that too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I think they did. I think they
Yeah.
did. Yeah,
Did they also become Marines?
they did. They did. Yes, we were in PI together at boot camp together.
Oh,
That's
wow.
really cool.
Yeah.
You still in touch with them?
One of them I am. The other one I have lost in touch. But one of them I am. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's so you had sort of this calling to serve. You had two friends that helped, get you through the door. What was it like? So you've now sort of, you're planting roots. You're integrating well clearly into this. I guess you would be Northern Virginia now at this point, right? Were you in?
So
Are you
after
still in Baltimore?
yeah, so I joined the Marines. I was in the reserves. I got
Okay.
a couple of deployments. Main one during Operation Iraqi Freedom. So my wife and I, one of the things that my parents had a challenge when I was signing up is that they didn't expect me to join the military. My dad got very excited. He's like,
Sure.
"This is really cool,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
I'm very supportive of it. My mother was not. She was worried that it's not going to be safe, and so the recruiters actually had to come, and I told the recruiters, "You need to convince my mother. My mom has to. She's the boss of the family, so you need to come and sit down with her." And it's a cultural thing. She'll cook you food. I don't know if
Mhm.
you've ever had Pakistani food.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So they came. I think their palates were really opened up with the thing. But I'm like, you got to convince her. So they came, and she felt really good about the recruiters coming down, sitting down, and explaining to them what's the Marine Corps experience like.
Yeah.
So they won her over. That was a challenge. But the deal I had with my parents is that I had to get a college degree education as well,
Mm.
because that was they don't have that, and it was really important for them is that they came to America to give their kids an opportunity. So that was
Okay.
a no. It was non-negotiable
Sure.
for all three of us that we had to get a college education.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of that American dream.
It is.
It is. Yeah, and
It
it's
is.
such an interesting thing. We've talked about it a little bit on the show with other uh, Marines who come from immigrant families, but one of the interesting things that I've found is for the first generation or the children of the immigrants, education is such a big deal because it's seen as that way to immediately start climbing the ladder. Was such a huge push for my family that all of the kids end up being like in some sort of professional field, be it doctors, lawyers, or whatever, because you're automatically now in a higher status position, and it's such a thing, and yeah, so I definitely that resonates with me, this idea that like you got to do
You
college.
got to do college.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I wasn't ready, but yeah, Nancy, you were
Oh,
gonna.
I was just going to say it in my family as well. Although several generations removed from the first immigrants in the family to this country, but education and higher education was always a non-negotiable because my dad particularly grew up extremely poor, and education was really his only way for opportunity.
Yeah.
And so it was just like it wasn't ever even questioned that
There weren't
there was no option.
YouTube influencers back
Correct.
then. So, yeah.
Correct.
There wasn't that.
Because hard work and education is what opened the door to opportunities for him.
Right. Absolutely.
So what then was that like? Because again, you enter into a new culture when you hit the yellow footprints. Like,
Yeah.
what was that like then? Were you fully prepared? Like, I get when I'm the recruiters prepare you like I'm ready for this, or you're like, this is another like sort of inflection point.
The Marine Corps changed my life. I mean, I had a great experience. Because it's just this network of folks who they protect you. You feel like part of it, right? So going through it, and I it actually helped me with discipline and structure. That those are some core elements, but also just a sense of caring about others, right? Because you don't leave anybody behind. And so with Marine service, you generally don't talk about the care and empathy you have for your team and your squad and everybody around you and your platoon, but that's a core component of being a Marine, right?
Sure.
You look out for each other. So it really, instilled in me a lot of values, really emphasized that I have held on to. So it was transformational.
Yeah.
For me, even more than my college experience. I'm being just frank with you.
Sure.
So going back to the college, I did my undergrad at GW. So that's where my wife and I, also, she's a daughter of immigrants. Her dad was an immigrant from Iran. So we met at GW. So after I finished my service, then we settled in Virginia.
Okay. Gotcha.
Can I go back a little bit
Sure.
to
Yeah.
you were talking about the recruiters had to convince your mom that this was a good idea. How did they do that? What did they say to her? What was the sticking point for her, or what made her feel like it was okay?
And then also, if we could, I forget, what's the timeline of this?
Sure. This is I was a senior in high school, so you're talking about early '96.
Okay.
Because I literally
So Clinton era Marine Corps.
Clinton era
Yeah.
Marine Corps. Yes,
Yeah,
that's a good context
Yeah.
to give. Okay, what was happening back then? Gosh, you ever have to ask her what convinced her. I don't remember the details of the conversations, but they explained how it gives structure and it's good. And they said, well, he can also leverage the GI Bill for college education. I think that conversation came up. Her main concern was the safety component, because nobody in our military's ever served. Nobody in our family's ever served in the military. So, and when I was deployed to Iraq, I mean, her health really declined a lot because she was very, very anxious and stressed. So it was just a safety thing. But I think that they had the conversation that, hey, we do good training and this is good. So she warmed up to that eventually. But I don't know exactly what was that one thing that convinced her. Yeah.
And when she gave you her approval, was it a sort of reluctant approval?
It was a reluctant approval, but she's really proud of it. Now that she looks back and she talks to her friend, she's like, my son was in the Marines.
Yeah.
You know.
How was Family Day then? Family Day at the PI.
So one of your questions, was that
Yeah.
what was your best memory? Actually, that is my best memory at PI, graduating, that feeling, because my grandfather had just immigrated in 95, 96. Also, they had retired from Pakistan. So my grandfather and my father and my mother and my two brothers came down for the graduation, and it was special. Like they
Yeah.
had tears in their. I mean, these are folks I've never seen tears in their eyes. They have both had.
Awesome.
They're tough dudes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was special for them. My mom, they were all proud. So it was a very special day.
That's so cool.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the things. So my mom obviously freaked out because I just did it. So there was no like talking to it because I was was a junior in college, and so I just did it, and so flipped out.
Yeah.
And but yeah, once she saw me at graduation getting my bars pinned on in my blues, she's like, all right, yeah, I guess this is pretty sweet. And it was the same way. All my uncles were like, kick ass, man.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, my mom was not.
It's
pleased.
always the mom.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah,
They want to protect their babies.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
for sure.
So
I can so relate to
Right.
both of those perspectives. If you can't convince mom, then it's an uphill battle.
mhm,
hmm
mhm.
Yeah. Well, so then, all right. So you're in the reserves. Are you still attending? You're also at GW. So you're a drilling reservist.
Drilling every month, all the summer stuff.
Yeah.
All the ATD, doing that. Finish up GW. We were So my wife and I, then the Operation Iraqi Freedom started. So
I was gonna say, were you actually teaching at the time?
I had
of
not
9/11?
started.
Okay.
Actually, as a matter of fact, I made a decision to teach while I was on deployment.
Mm,
So I got deployed in
Interesting.
03. My wife and I had just gotten married. She was still at GW finishing her undergrad. I had just started working. Uh, so obviously September 11th happens.
Yep.
You fast forward a little bit where
And were you
in
in DC at the time?
I
Were
was
you
in DC. Actually, I was I was only a few blocks from the White House.
Good grief.
So my wife works for Department of Energy.
Okay.
She had not gone to work just yet, and we lived in the waterfront. Where where the Nat Stadium is
Yeah.
Yes.
now. So we were in these apartments in the waterfront where she heard a big thumping when the Pentagon was hit.
Yeah.
So we, obviously heard the first tower getting hit. I was working as a paralegal at this firm. So the news was kind of breaking out. And then actually watched the second tower hit on television because in this conference room, they gathered the employees. So it was a lot of chaos.
Sure.
And my office was on 13th and F. So it's a few blocks from the White House. So there was all kinds of stuff going on. Is that, hey, is the White House next? What's happening, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's kind of running away, walking away from the White House. Me and my two friends, everybody's angry. So I remember Chris and John are like, we got to go towards that. And so Chris, everybody's saying crazy things. They're like, I need my shotgun. I'm like, dude, what are you going to do with a shotgun? And I was thinking, I think back at it, but there was so much anxiety, fear, everything, just
The
so much
unknown. There was so much
unknowns.
unknown.
Yeah, I don't know where you all were, but it was, everybody has, they
Yeah.
remember that day, wherever they were.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was at Camp Pendleton. We had just finished PT and we were getting ready to do our company formation.
Yeah.
And so we're down on the ramp. CEO comes down. Everybody get to the, this is before everybody had a TV. Get to the common area up
Right.
at the barracks. So you go up there. One of my clerk was like, "Hey, sir, you hear somebody flew into the airplane into the World Trade Center?" I thought it was like one of those Cessnas or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
what an idiot!
Yeah.
Like, how do you?
That's what initially we all thought.
Yeah,
is
and
that-
so I get up there. It's same like just like you. Like right as I get in the common area, they got the big screen in the
Yeah.
barracks common area. I see the second plane hit,
that's when you knew that.
and then
Yeah.
our battalion commander just issued order, everybody get to the armory. Because I don't know if you know Camp Pendleton, but where we're at Camp Delmar, the only thing that separates us from I-5 was a chain link fence.
Mhm.
So everybody kits up. LAR jams over to San Onofre nuclear power plant. The same thing. Everybody's freaking out. Like any car or truck, especially that even like got a little too close to the fence, was like under someone's crosshairs. With distinguished marksmen all on the tops. I mean, it was insane. And we were in the shoot for deployment, so we're like, all right, I guess this is happening for us.
Right.
Anyways,
I mean, that's what, and my wife and I remember having this conversation that evening because some of buddies, we walked home to the waterfront because the metro was kind of chaotic. So a couple of them who lived in other parts of Virginia, they wanted to wait a little bit until the metro got under control. So they walked to my house, my apartment, and we just kind of watched on television. But after they all left, my wife and I, we talked. I'm like, I don't know where, but I'm getting deployed. I'm just
Yeah,
letting you know.
yeah,
This,
yeah. This
it's
is
happening.
happening.
It's happening. And we started prepping, like right there, like, things got real, really fast. So Operation Iraqi Freedom, I got deployed in January of '03
Mhm.
for a 6-month tour in Iraq. So my wife was actually pregnant with her firstborn. So she was
Mm.
7 months
Wow.
pregnant. So that was a very, you know, it provided a lot of reflection because I'm about to become a dad, getting deployed. I'm 25, but I'm leading a lot of young men and women who are younger than me, so they're looking up to you, right?
Yeah,
Right.
you're
It's like,
Right.
hey,
NCO at this point, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you do, right?
Hmm.
So took that very seriously, and so during the deployment, I did a lot of reflection because because I'm coming from a background where we had a lot of economic fragility. I was really thinking about, hey, I need to make a bunch of money, support my parents, family, and so forth. So I was really had a tunnel vision. But that reflection was transformative because then over those 6 months, I really thought about that I want to do something more meaningful. So that's when that transition in my thinking occurred and meaningful, thinking about Mr. Teeter, who had an impact on me, or other people in my family who are educators. So that's why I decided to go into education. So when I got back, finished my Marine service, started to get a degree at Mason and transition into becoming a teacher in Virginia. So that's how that happened.
Yeah. Okay. How cool.
Mm.
And then, so you're coming off a deployment. You got your DD 214 in hand,
Mhm.
um, and now you're starting the teaching process. And you went into right into middle school, or like what was that transition
So I
like?
had to do, I had to get a master's
Mm-hmm.
at George Mason University. So I got it in U.S. history because I wanted to be a history teacher. And uh, I also got certified in mathematics because there were limited history positions. So just in case my program said, hey, get a certification and everything. So I got hired as both. So I started my student teaching in 2007. So you need a couple of years to kind of
Yeah.
prep.
Yeah.
And then officially started in '07 to teach in Prince William County schools. We had moved to Prince William County School, but Prince William County, uh, right after my Marine Corps service ended in '04. We moved to Prince William. So been here for 20 years, but I started teaching in '07,
Okay.
'08 time frame.
Yeah. All right. And then, I mean, clearly, this '07. So I mean, the war is still very much a
Hmm.
real thing. How did you feel like your service, not only being a Marine, but a combat veteran, as you're looking at kids that are potentially heading that way? Um, you're obviously have an inclination to run towards the chaos.
Hmm.
Middle school is nothing but
Right.
chaos. Like how was that? Did you feel like I'm ready for this, or another, like, I need to button my chin strap up. This is gonna go.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, middle school, teaching middle school, if you can teach middle school, you could do it. Well,
Yeah, agree.
honestly, and it's uh, so the first year when I started teaching, when I was hired, folks are like, "Hey, bring your military experience there. It's inspiring for children, but also it brings structure and discipline." And
Hmm.
I learned a lot in the first few years because I feel like, especially with middle schoolers, you have to give children grace and let them be,
Oh
because
yeah.
That's
sometimes
wonderful.
too
I
much,
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes too much structure and too much discipline can also be
confining.
confining.
Yeah, yeah.
That's Yes, exactly. So I learned a lot, yeah, in the first couple of years, is that some of the veteran teachers who were mentoring me,
You had other veterans teachers with
like
you.
teachers who were not military
Oh,
veterans, veterans of
Gotcha,
teaching.
gotcha.
There
Yeah.
were some teachers who were veteran
Okay.
as well, but the teachers who were mentoring me, um, they said, we appreciate the discipline and structure. Children need that, but kind of loosen the grip a little bit,
Interesting.
and take a holistic approach. Because I taught in a Title I school. If you all don't know what that is, where there is a significant amount of students on free and reduced lunch. So there's a lot of students from
Mm.
different immigrant backgrounds.
Yeah,
So a lot
yeah,
of Black and Latino children and immigrant children that from my background as well, like South Asian, Muslim background.
yeah.
So I could relate to them on that perspective. But there was, children have, they have adverse experiences at home, so they might have had their own trauma. They're dealing with a lot of, basic needs issues, malnutrition or
Yeah, the
just
food insecurity
food
stuff,
insecurity.
sure.
There's immigration status, right? A lot of
Hmm.
children in Prince William County, new immigrants, they're coming from mixed incomes, mixed status families where some of their parents might be undocumented. So there's a lot on them, and so I think that that's what I realized. It took me a couple of years to come to the realization is that you have to meet the children where they are and really understand
Sure.
what they're going through. I had to find a good balancing act that, yes, you want to provide structure, so we can learn in a safe environment, but also keep in mind is that, they're going through a lot of
Yeah,
different things.
sure. Yeah, I obviously this was a big topic during the pandemic. Is you know, whereas one aspect of doing away with in-person schooling was to obviously prevent the spread of the virus, but at the same time, like all of those families that relied on school meals,
Yeah.
um, uh, it was an aspect of education that I always took for granted as a child, and then it didn't resonate with me that yes, like you're mentioning, a very rigid structure, whereas it does give direction. If I'm so hungry that I can't focus, and now I'm being browbeat over the structure, I'm not getting anything out of
Right.
here. Like I'm actually, it's turning me away
Right.
from the fruits of of an education
Right.
sort of outlook in life. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's the thing. And there was during the pandemic, while the schools buildings were closed and virtual instruction was going on, in Virginia, we were serving 250,000 meals every day across the state. And I went to different sites, rural Virginia, urban settings, you name it, right?
Hmm.
Nova and stuff. There's a lot of food insecurities. Um, and folks actually, we would make grocery bags, so you're not giving lunch necessarily. So bag of a box of spaghetti and spaghetti sauce
Right.
and mac and cheese or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I saw like lines of cars because families they do rely on those two meals that children get in school Monday through Friday. So it's a big deal.
It's huge. Yeah.
Hmm.
My heart just swelled at seeing those
Hmm.
lines and lines of people that were just waiting to deliver, not
Hmm.
to receive, but to deliver. And then heartbreaking when you'd see then the lines of the people waiting to get it. But I mean, it really seemed like, at least from our perspective here in Northern Virginia, that like the outpouring of support for people, and I think it was kind of a wake up call for all of us
Yes.
that, oh shit, there's like more to this than just like curriculum
That's right.
issues.
Hmm.
Um, and I apologize if you did touch on this, but as we're talking, I mean, clearly you have a passion for children. You have a passion from the institution of learning and for guiding and mentoring kids. But like, was there a sort of light bulb moment? Because like you said, it happened while you're on deployment. Like, was there something in Iraq where you're like, this is my calling now. I know what I have to do.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a specific day. It was a series of things. So there was a disruption, obviously with the war going on. So I don't think there was regular schooling happening for. It took several months to kind of get things back on
Hmm.
track. So a lot of children were out of school in Iraq, and you see them on the streets.
Yeah.
Talk to some college students because we were at Adivani University. It's a sister campus of Baghdad, University of Baghdad's.
What area was that?
Adivania. It's
Yeah,
about
yeah,
hour
yeah.
and a,
Dude,
yeah.
yeah. We had to do our op pause
You had
there,
to pause there, right?
and the Fedayeen were on us like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
white on rice in a snowstorm, man.
So we had to set up shop there because we needed a lot of the bases were not really Iraqi bases were not really well equipped to set up
Hmm.
big operations. So universities generally were, but you had to do another negotiation, and that's one of the things that folks don't realize about military, they're only thinking combat, 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 but 90% of it is actually building relationships
Sure.
and diffusing situations. So we had to, and me being from a Muslim culture, I don't speak Arabic. We had hired interpreters, but but one of the things, often ended up happening is that having somebody who understood the culture and the norms and so forth, it really brought temperatures down, because folks they are like, oh, what are you, right?
Right.
Some people thought I was Iraqi. They were trying to figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
but because of that sharing that faith, it brought temperatures down, because we had to negotiate with the local communities and college students to say, well, can we utilize the university to set up shop? We won't take over the whole thing, but you can still so it was a lot of relationship building, but so it was a series of different things. Working with college students who we hired as interpreters, because they spoke English better than me, actually, many of them.
Mm-hmm.
But also seeing the disruption in education there, seeing the disruption in education with young children. So it's a series of things that really got me thinking that education is so critical. I know one of your questions you had sent over is that you're focused on education lane and why Congress. And sorry to jump here a little bit,
No, please. Yeah.
but my theory of change through experience is that everything is connected, right? So whether it's quality of issues with housing or healthcare, or whatever, I think education is not only the great equalizer, but it's also the great stabilizer.
Mm.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think the reason we have crime went up a lot after the pandemic, especially in urban areas. Why? Because there's a lot of economic fragility, right? Why does generally crime go up? Is then when there's a lot of instability. Why does terrorism, or why is it that extreme groups can exploit people and recruit them for terror activities when there's a lot of instability and economic fragility, right? So I think this impacts us locally and globally.
Sure.
So my theory of change is that if we can take a cross systems approach and really address the basic needs of people, I think they're less vulnerable
Yeah.
to being exploited. So that's where, just kind of that reflection that started in as a when I was 25 going into education, but then it's evolved over time, right? In the last 20 years, as I've worked in this field and work in, to do a lot of policy stuff, is that, you know, I think we just are leaving a lot of people behind and leaving them vulnerable to political exploitation or whatever. And I think
Something's got to fill the void. Yeah.
something is, and that's why I
Yeah.
think we see a lot of, politicians going in and dividing us, because
Mm.
we're not really addressing the quality of life
Yeah.
issues meaningfully.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Or looking for something you talked about a few minutes ago was that common ground that you had. And so I think more and more, just as a society, we aren't looking for common ground. We're looking for what divides us, and then we really dig into that,
yes,
as opposed to, okay, what do we all have in common? What can we all talk about? I mean, in this room right now, you guys immediately had something to talk about. That's the Marine Corps, and you had that common ground right away. Sometimes it's a little harder to find it,
Yeah.
and generally we don't encourage that anymore
Mm-hmm.
in
Right.
society.
yeah, food, sports, music. Hey, but there's a lot that brings us together. But it's just the thing is we don't talk about it. But I think that so I traveled all across Virginia. I've been to rural settings where are predominantly white settings. I've been to rural settings where are predominantly black settings. Right? It's still there's segregated systems all across Virginia. I've been to very diverse settings, of Nova and so forth. Sat down with different communities. Everybody wants the same thing for their children, right?
Sure.
They want a good education. They want a good health for them.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Along those lines, I remember very vividly because this is one of the first times I actually saw someone look at me and just hate me. This is when I was in Iraq, and we hemmed up a legit extremist terrorist fighter, and most of the kids were kids at this point in the game. There weren't a lot of real hardliners. Most of those guys were vacationing in Dubai or whatever, waiting for everything to end to come back. But this dude was gnarly, hard as woodpecker lips. And I just saw the way he looked at me. Anyways, all of that is the context to say, once we actually started talking dude, there wasn't a lot that actually separated us, other than maybe like religion and stuff. But at the end of the day, he just wanted a better life for his family and for his loved ones' families. And so we were all just thinking about our kids. We're thinking the same thing. Like, we got to end this crap because we don't want our kids to have to be worrying about all this stuff too. It's a this very interesting dynamic. And actually, we never really got close. But I mean, it was like you're saying, we were able to really lower the temperature of our interactions, even though I think at the end of the day he still wanted to kill me. He didn't want to do it quite as like vehemently as he did when we first started. I first like hemmed him up. That was probably not the great way to. It wasn't like surprise party. It was more like surprise, you're coming with us and going to Buka. Anyways, but it was very interesting. I never really even thought of that aspect actually until we just started talking.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
pretty
because
cool.
just think about how many times those relationships on the ground, they brought the temperatures down and something didn't happen. Bad could have more bad could have happened, right? Something else could have broken out. So that's critical. I think that's part of our national security strategy too. That's one of the things with Congress I think about, is that how can we do better? We talk. I mean, I'm not a pacifist. I'm Marine.
Right.
I think we need to have a good national defense. We need to keep our communities safe. We need to keep the world safe. We need to protect, our borders. But I think that we need to continue to rethink is that how can we meaningfully build relationships, have good economic relationships with countries that everybody can thrive. Because when I talk to because I've also been a college professor at George Mason, so I'm talking to a lot of college students, and the three things that for the first time in many generations, that hope of college and the promise of tomorrow, you get a good college education so you can have upward mobility. Right now, there's this sense of helplessness amongst college students, right? Is that they're seeing the three things they talk about: the climate, of course, then they talk about the local political, division,
Right.
and they talk about the global affairs. It keeps coming up,
Yeah.
right? And they're also tying all of this is that while this is going on, is that cost of everything is high.
True.
Living is high, cost of tuition and debt. So they just really feel down. So I think we have to, our generation has to turn things around and, hand off a better future. Because every generation wants to hand off the situation in a better position than we got it. So right now, there's just too much going on that we need to kind of get a grip of it so they don't feel so helpless. And I think that it's really important for a future generation that we, address a lot of these things thoughtfully. I think it's also important for our national security also is that how are we working with other countries? I think that sometimes things get really siloed off and we just go, and we forget to connect the dots that, hey, what is it going to, what are these unintended consequences that is going to result in? So
what's interesting, the dynamic, I guess, just in this room. So a mother of adult children, like we were talking earlier, full on doing the thing that,
adulting,
adulting, full on adulting.
Yeah.
You've got
21 and a 16.
Yeah, so they're entering into the like the full on adulthood, not just the like, hey, I'm still sort of a dependent. Like, no, you're it, man. Like, this is gonna be. And then mine are 9 and 6, so they're still just trying to figure out how to get more playtime. But I think it's interesting. I guess if we could all, I guess, just sort of talk about like what is that like as us, sort of handing off the baton in all these different phases of the emerging generations, because we've got all of the upcoming full on generational people now who are our decisions impact obviously what is ahead for them. And when we're talking about like for the first time, I think ever, this upcoming generation is not as hopeful as the previous. So I guess as a parent, like how is that? Like what is that? Like?
Well, and I have them kind of at two ends of that because I have one. There's such a big age gap between my three. My oldest is, what did I say? She's 35. I just outed her for being 35, and my youngest is 24. So I've got two millennials and a Gen Z,
Mhm.
and for sure, my youngest definitely doesn't have that same sort of optimism about the possibility uh, of the future in this country that my oldest had. And ooh, that's a complex. I'm not used to people asking me the questions. I'm supposed to ask the questions. I don't know. It is a tricky thing to navigate because um, you definitely see that difference in how things are
Yeah.
even, and how what they expect, what their peers expect, what they're saying. Oh, I'm gonna have to give that a little more thought.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And Atif, what about you?
No, I think yeah. So one is 21, one is 16, and they think very differently too. But yeah, they're having these conversations. My 16-year-old is not as academically inclined as the older one, so he's,
As
he's like,
16-year-olds are wants to do, right?
yes, play video games. He's in
Yeah.
MMA fighting. Like
Yeah.
he spars like all the time. Like he's a big boy. He's good. That he wants
Nice.
to be, a MMA fighter. That's his thing, or a billionaire.
Yeah,
So
right,
I guess
right.
they're
Or an
both.
MMA billionaire. Yeah,
Right.
MMA fighting billionaire.
But so I think so. He doesn't think that college. He thinks college is a waste of time. I've had this conversation with him. Smart kid, but he's like, look, it's just not. My friends and I, we're not. I'll do something else.
Yeah.
So he thinks very differently. The older one wanted to go to college. We didn't put any pressure on him. Like, do what you want, but they're different.
Yeah.
But overall, there is this sense of with both of them is they're more jokey where they kind of mock the divisiveness in our
Okay.
country. They make fun of it. They're like, look, this is what
Yeah, it's kind of like the Daily
everybody's
Show.
doxing. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Right, like-
funny. This is funny. So they take it a little bit differently, but there is this sense of that, hey, there's this uncertainty of what's happening. But that's just anecdotally speaking. But I think at
Yeah.
a wider scale, as I talk to a lot of young people, there is a sense of helplessness and many of them also, if you think about it, we have a flatlining of people having children too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So because the cost of living is so high in areas, and that's where it is having an adverse impact. People are waiting to have kids a little bit longer or not having them. Like there's a big divide, a generational gap between me and my youngest brother, 10 years. So him and his wife waited a while. They just had their first baby, right?
Oh,
They're
wow, okay.
35. They waited because they wanted to settle in their careers. So it's a very different mindset even within my own family. So there has been this shift that's occurred with millennials and upcoming Gen Zs, where I think we need to kind of turn things around, because we want folks to, enjoy life, be healthy,
Yeah.
if they choose to grow a family and stuff.
And that cultural outlook isn't a light switch, right? Like, I mean, as Gen Xers, dude, I'm still as cynical as practically, and everything is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I expected it sucked, so I
I
win,
was right. I
yeah,
knew.
I win, like,
Yeah.
where's, turn Pearl Jam back on.
Yes. Can we
And-
do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so I think there is a responsibility for us to I mean, it's hard and it's hard. It's got to be hard work, and obviously you would know more than anybody else in this room. But that's just got to be extremely hard work to say, like, no, there is a lot to be optimistic about,
Yeah.
or there is like this. In the Marine Corps, one of the things that conversation topic that comes up all the time as we're talking Gen Z is grit. Like, how do we teach resilience? How do we reinforce grit? And so, I guess it leads me into the question is we're talking about your sort of transitioning from being in the trenches as a teacher to then into public policy. Like, where do you ever look back and go, oh, these things that I know now would have made me such a better teacher here? Or is it the opposite? Like, oh, all of my experiences sort of being in the trenches have really helped me focus, where I want to achieve sort of my public policy career.
Yeah, so both are true, yes and
Okay.
yes. for true. And I think that kind of touching on the earlier conversation, closing a loop on that, is that just my own example, you can have a really fruitful, awesome life, right? I mean, I've, you know, been very, very blessed to have that, and you can do that. And I think touching your point on grit and resiliency is important. How do we, build that,
Mm-hmm.
build the muscles
Yeah,
with
yeah.
our young people to do that? It's important because we want to give them hope that, hey, you can. We're the land of opportunity, the best model that anybody's ever seen in the history of the world, and we can do it. So going back to the question about transitioning. So uh, I've been the only one to serve as Secretary of Education in Virginia, and I think maybe anywhere in the country, that came right out of the classroom.
Yeah.
So people ask, how did that happen? It's just, I think, being at the right place at the right time. Uh, so I began to organize a lot of my teacher friends about a decade plus ago, because there were a lot of issues in the county I was teaching at with funding for schools. So that uh, civic engagement and organizing them and being vocal about it, and really organizing votes, uh, helped uh, kind of help me stand out. So when Governor Northam gets elected, a lot of people were advocating. They're saying, "Hey, this person, knows a lot, has learned a lot about education, is very passionate about it." The governor's like, "Yeah, it would be really cool to have a teacher, fresh perspective in Richmond. We've never had that. I want to focus a lot on education also." So it's just the stars aligned.
Mm.
So that's how it happened.
Okay.
But I held,
Interesting.
yeah,
So that wasn't something you're like, to remember me, like sending out flyers and stuff. Like this was totally sort of a word of mouth
yes,
network grassroots.
yes, yeah. It was not. I mean, I didn't even know what Secretary of Education was, really,
Right.
honestly. But he gets elected, and he had talked about it, and then I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, Secretary of Education oversees all of the schools in Virginia, all of the colleges and universities, all public, right, and all the museums and stuff. I'm like, it's a $19 billion budget, so you can't even imagine you're a classroom teacher making 52 grand a year when I was making, with
Yeah,
two
yeah.
masters. You can't imagine, because I was looking at the profile, and it's the people before me. They've been CEOs of this or president of that, right? It's just unimaginable.
That, what you just said, is unimaginable to me. And shame on me for having lived in Virginia for 20 years and not knowing that,
He's the first teacher.
yes, and that CEOs of corporations are making decisions about education without ever having been in the classroom
Mhm.
and been educators.
Mm-hmm. That's how the case was. That's where, so here comes his governor. I mean, so he's like, hey, it was just, yeah, everybody was like, what happened?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's cool. But I'm like, okay, I'm given this opportunity for 4 years. I'm going to go all in. So was very fortunate. Had a supportive team, supportive boss, and the governor, and we just went all in. I held on to my personal experiences growing up, and held on to all of the things I learned from my students and their families. Really, really tight. They were my top advisors. I did a lot of roundtables with students, actually,
No, that's awesome.
regularly. Getting out to schools, and they help shape policy. I'm like, hey, what do we need? We're talking to teachers and counselors and stuff. What do we need? So we were able to just get a bunch of stuff done,
Yeah.
right? I mean, bunch of stuff. And I know we have a lot of other things to talk about, but it was a lot of cool things. A lot of
That's awesome. Yeah, I really. It seems like it's not as common as it should be because it seems so intuitive. But it's like, rather than like force feeding agendas down, why don't you find out what it is that they need, and then we'll actually shape our policy
Yeah.
based off of what
It
the
did, it
demand
did.
signal is.
And we got the largest expansion in pre-K. We got 15% salary increases for teachers. So that was the one thing, is that we keep doing like 1 or 2%. Like, let's go all in.
It doesn't even match inflation.
It doesn't match inflation,
Right.
and we're so behind. So that was a big thing, and it's helping a lot of people, because many public servants, like Marines who are public servants, right? The salary is not that good. You're struggling, and a lot of teachers have where both of the spouses are teachers.
Yeah.
So they struggle, and many of them can't afford to live in Loudoun or Fairfax or Prince William. They have to drive in from somewhere, right? They might choose to live in Fauquier or Stafford, right? And they have to drive in. So it's really, really tough on them. So we just need to pay them accordingly. So that was the thing, is that I think that having that sense of urgency as a teacher, having gone through that struggle, it was a constant reminder. And then, but another big thing was establishing a free community college, because that's another option and gateway for upward mobility. Virginia we were way behind. Like, I've seen all these other states have it. Like, why don't we have it? So that was really really critical. But one thing that you had mentioned in your notes earlier is that in the 50s and 60s, 70% of Congress used to have military
Yeah,
veterans.
I definitely wanted to touch on this. I
Yeah.
know it could be like
There's a
we
there's a
sit here and
segue.
talk to you about all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
but there's
all
a
day,
segue
but
because
yeah,
because it ties into what I'm this earlier comment is that I looked into that because it made me think, okay, why is it at 17 or 18%? But if you think about it, a lot of veterans are not millionaires. They're not rich.
right.
Okay, they're coming from public service. So what's happened in the last few decades is that a lot of rich people end up running for Congress who are millionaires, or
Well, because it costs a lot to
it
run a
costs a
campaign,
lot.
right?
Cost a lot, or they're bought off by a lot of special interest groups,
right,
right?
right,
So
right.
they're fully financed. So it's not only veterans, but folks who represent middle income families are not represented in Congress because they don't have the resources to run, because it's very, very expensive. So I don't think that what Congress used to be historically, how initially in the inception of our country, it was more aristocrats, right? But I think
Right.
it balanced out, that more working and middle class people were represented in Congress. But then I think it's going back to that again, right, where the pendulum has shifted. And I think that's the big
Yeah.
disconnect, is that if you haven't really had those struggles, then I think I'm not saying that folks who are born wealthy don't have empathy. You can understand and relate, and I think there are a lot of good people in Congress. But I think that the sense of urgency is missing.
It's not tangible.
Yeah.
Well, and another disconnect, in my opinion, is that I don't think the original intent was that you go serve in public office and camp out there for your entire life.
That's right.
That, you're supposed to serve your country, and then you go back to what you're doing. And then maybe you
But
serve again in
DC's
another.
got some swanky digs.
I know, I know, I know. So I think that's also where the disconnect is, and that also, you were talking earlier about finding common ground, being able to lower the temperature in a heated situation. So when you stay in that very insulated community, which is, public office, you don't necessarily keep honing those skills in how to open your mind to get along with new people and hear new points of view.
Yeah, I guess just to hit on some of those data points that Atif was mentioning. So the 118th Congress, which was the previous year, only had 18%, which was an increase from 17% from the 117th Congress the year before. But in the 70s and 80s, it was as high as, it was like in the 70th, in the 70s. The percentile was in the 70s. And it's such an interesting demographic shift as we look at, especially as we're talking divisiveness. I mean, as you mentioned, like but in lieu of us both being Marines, we're able to really achieve common ground. And I think for service members in general, you get that sort of idea that like mission accomplishment trumps all. So what do we got to do to accomplish the mission? I mean, like working with a combined task force, for example, like I've got the Navy, doing their thing. I've got to work with soft bubbas to give me the intel and to shape the battlefield. I need the grunts, man, because I need boots on the ground. I got to coordinate air and fires. None of us see this thing the same way. Air's going to tell you, if I don't bomb, you lose. The grunts are going to say, if I don't hold the ground, you're never going to get here. The Navy's going to say, like, well, if we don't get you there, what are you going to do? If we don't maintain these shipping lanes, everybody's got their thing and will argue till they're blue in the face that they're the best. But at the end of the day, we've got to come together to achieve this thing because that's what we do. We accomplish the mission. This is what service members do. I think there's also the idea of self-sacrifice in the name of service. But I also think, too, like coming off of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, there just was with the draft in particular, there was just a higher population
That's true.
to pull from
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to discount it as much, but I do think that there's something to be said for veterans continuing their public service,
Yeah.
and then having or I don't want to call it term limits because this is a political show, but having a sense that like I can now pass the baton
That
to the next
public service has a lot of different meanings.
Yeah,
I mean, just think about all the classy folks who've served, like John McCain, Bob Dole, others, right, who've had amazing, impeccable service, and they have been leaders.
Yeah, I mean George Herbert, G. Dub, like the Bushes, they get.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear the stuff about George Herbert, man. You're like, this dude was like this gnarly guy, man.
I was lucky enough just before the pandemic, actually, to have a sit down interview with Senator John Warner.
Okay.
And he had an incredible life of public service in the Navy, in the Marine Corps, and then in the Senate. And he talked about how it was when he first got elected, how there was this sort of, I don't want to say underground group, but all the Marines kind of found each other, and it didn't matter which party they were representing. They did exactly what you talked about, Vic. They came together. They put differences aside to accomplish the most important mission.
Right.
And you know,
Well, we
it
just
was an
finished
interesting
talking
conversation.
about the book Wingmen.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
John Glenn and
Ted
Ted
Williams.
Williams, man. Like because they're veterans, right?
Right,
like, and
right.
this is
They were very different
unbreakable
politically,
friendship now.
and it didn't matter that they both came from such different places politically. They were able to find common ground in their discussions, and they stayed friends for life.
They didn't even agree on how best to employ their weapons platform.
Right.
Anyways, Atif, this has been so great.
Yeah.
I could sit here honestly and talk to you for like hours upon hours upon hours. But I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
Semper Fidelis, Mac.
Hoorah.
Like this is
Semper
so
Fi.
good. Just as we close out, like because of all this transition that you've done, like what sort of nuggets of wisdom, pearls of wisdom do you have for our listeners as far as like handling transition for those Marines who are either doing a MOS switch, getting out of the Marine Corps, for our listeners who are looking all of the various ways that we transition, things that it creates anxiety and the fear of the unknown, and what are some of the things that you would
Yeah, so I
recommend?
think you never end up being a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I mean, I've been out for 20 years, but you still wake up one night and have dreams about it. You know?
Yeah.
So I think my recommendation would be two things. Is as you're transitioning, especially from military service to civilian life, to take it one step at a time. I've seen some of my friends, struggle with that. That you're part of, an organization that really looks out for you. There's a safety net there, and in the civilian life, it might not be there. So kind of taking it one step at a time, taking it easy. If you are a person who values families and friends, keeping them close, because it can be tough on family.
And then the culture we're talking about, like,
Yes.
feels so isolated,
Yes.
even though you've got like all of the grams.
Yep. And then staying in touch with fellow Marines. Like I've stayed in touch with some of them over the years, seeing how where they are now, and I think it's that is important. Somebody who can relate to your experiences, because many people can't, right? So I think that if you're in touch with a few folks who can relate to your experiences, so that helps with the transition.
Yeah, awesome. So good. Yeah, this has been so great.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for making the trip down. I would be 100% remiss if I didn't thank Zaid for actually putting us in
Yeah.
touch. And he was a
Former student.
Yeah. See, again,
Oh
like you're a
wow,
student.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so I got an email. So, fan of the show. So shout out. But
We have one. Yay.
yes, yeah, we have
Many.
one. But yeah, so he has enjoyed our straight talks with Dr. Hunziker, and he was like, "Hey, I've got a wonderful guest for you," and he was not wrong. This has been so amazing. So thank you so much for coming down, for entertaining us, and for just shooting the breeze with us about
Thank
this
you.
extremely important
Thank you, both of you.
topic.
Will you keep us posted?
Yeah,
On-
absolutely.
100,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Wish me luck. Yes, absolutely.
We definitely wish you
Yeah,
wish
thank
you
you.
all the luck, and then let's try to get you back on the show.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
Promise. After I'm in office, I'll definitely come back.
Oh,
yeah, yeah, awesome.
That's a Marine's
Outstanding.
promise, not a politician's promise. Marine's
That's
promise.
outstanding.
that's right,
Love
that's
it.
right.
Love
Yeah,
it.
Awesome.
All right, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you all.
The Marine Shop would like to extend a Happy New Year to our servicemen and women, friends, and families of the Corps. For over 60 years, the Marine Shop has prided itself on high-quality uniforms and expert tailoring. Whether you've snagged a seam, lost a button, or need your medals and ribbons updated, we're here to help. Act now for your uniform repairs and updates before it's too late. Stop by our Quantico location or contact a customer support specialist at 888-237-7683 for additional information. The Marine Shop also carries an array of tactical gear, apparel, and decor. From helmet bags and knives to t-shirts and decals, the Marine Shop has your Marine Corps needs covered. We carry items from trusted brands such as K-Bar, Smith & Wesson, and Under Armour. Shop online at www.marineshop.net or in store at our Quantico locations for deals and new products. With the holidays behind us and 2024 fully underway, get a jump on any of your uniform and equipment needs. The Marine Shop has your Marine Corps needs covered.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. I am William Truding, but you've also heard the voices or contributions of Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Lichman, or Ty Frazier. The opinions expressed in this episode do not reflect the official stance of the Marine Corps, DoD, or Marine Corps Association.